we got shot at. She got shot. Someone shot at my car, so I took off. She went in the woods, maybe he's setting up an alibi. I don't know.
No. I'll get to that, but no, he's just pissed off. He's in a rage. So I paused. You shot up your own car. I also found it odd that he didn't even assault her. He just killed her. And it kind of to me was, okay, you wanted to have sex. Mm-hmm. That was the whole reason you were pissed off, because she didn't want to have sex.
Yeah.
You're willing to kill her. You're willing to choke her to death. You're willing to shoot her 7 times. Mm-hmm. But you would not have assaulted her first before killing her. You're willing to go that extra mile, but you would not have done the assault.
No. Yeah, I don't know.
She was not assaulted that way. So it was odd to me that
she wasn't sexually assaulted.
She wasn't sexually assaulted.
Obviously, physically.
Right. No, she was. That's why I said that way.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if she's lucky that she wasn't raped before she was killed. Doesn't even matter. Just, if you're comfortable doing one thing, mm-hmm. which is horrific, why are you not comfortable doing the other? Why didn't it happen? So I also question, I don't know if this is premeditated. I don't know that I would consider it premeditated.
No, because I don't think he planned on picking up a hitchhiker.
No, he planned on something that day. I feel like, yeah, the hitchhiker was just kind of this happened. But he also had this feather and this bungee cord kind of ready to go.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of weird. He's distracting her with the feather, and then he wraps the bungee cord around her neck. She's distracted. She doesn't. All that aside, regardless, she did not obviously deserve what she got. Mm-hmm. Her body is found several days later by berry pickers, and by that time, she's unrecognizable. She has been out in the elements and decayed. There's no identification on the body. And there's just like some personal belongings in her bag, like her smokes and a couple items, but there's no ID. They don't know who she is or where she's from. So still to this day, she's Jane Doe.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. She was buried as Jane Doe. And every once in a while, every few years, they'll put out more information and try to get somebody somewhere that might recognize her. There have been quite a few attempts to identify her. There was, of course, a composite sketch done right away. Mm-hmm. Here's kind of creepy. They sent her hands to Virginia to be fingerprinted. I don't know. They also
just in hopes that someone would recognize it. In the 70s, I think it wasn't as prevalent. You know what I mean? They didn't have a computer data. Maybe the FBI. That's why they sent it to Virginia.
No, but what confused me is Seattle had the capability, like Seattle as a metropolitan area, mm-hmm. had the capability of taking fingerprints. Mm-hmm. Why could they not have taken the fingerprints and then sent that copy to Virginia? What was it about physically needing the actual hands?
I don't know.
I was kind of confused on that. I had not heard of that happening in like any of the Green River stuff, any of it's weird. Then they also had at 2 separate times, they had forensic artists do a mold of her skull to try to recreate what she would look like. And Dave actually has been really helpful with the information that he did have, hair color, eye color, characteristics that he does remember. Mm-hmm. He has provided that information willingly. They also tried to have some of her dental work identified. So all of this throughout the years, so this was 1977, all of this throughout the years has led to nothing, unfortunately. I'm going to link some information to the website when we put the episode up and on social media of her description, and some information about, if you think you might recognize her, here's who to contact, because I feel like the more this type of thing gets spread around, it can only lead to better things.
I know you guys can do it. Our small but mighty community.
We can do it.
Yes.
Somebody can do it. Somebody will know something. So it's been a very long time since her death, but the police are still hopeful that they will somehow get her identified. They have DNA that can be tested against other, DNA. So as that collection of DNA, expands, they can run it against that and see if they can find anybody. So at some point, hopefully she will get identified. But so they don't know who she is, and he's not found. So how did they find him and connect him to the crime? Honestly, they got lucky.
Oh.
So the day before her body was found, authorities responded to a report of a man waving a rifle in a park. They come across Dave. He's actually one of the sheriffs that's responding to that call.
Yeah.
Comes across him driving on the highway erratically in his shot-up Chevy Nova. He's high as hell. They pull him over. They find a bunch of weed in the car along with the loaded .22. They impound the car. Mm-hmm. They have the rifle, and Dave serves the night in jail on charges for marijuana. So without knowing, they have the murder weapon. They have the person responsible. They have the car he was driving. However, it would take them 2 years to get it together to arrest him.
2 years.
2 years.
Jesus.
So shortly after he's released, Dave had let it slip to a friend some details about him killing a hitchhiker. Mm-hmm. This friend, in turn, calls Seattle police, who, in turn, contact the sheriffs where they had the car and the weapon. Mm-hmm. What is frustrating is that it's 2 years for them to get a ballistics match on the bullets. And that's outrageous. Even in 1977.
2 years?
Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, they kind of need that to be able to make a charge.
Yeah.
They need to make it stick. So Dave is finally arrested on January 18th, 1979 on charges related to the failure to show for the marijuana. Mm-hmm. Once they have him in possession or in custody, they question him, and he readily admits to killing the hitchhiker, to Jane Joe. So in November of that year, he's charged to first-degree murder and life in prison with the possibility of parole. So I want to note, during the trial, his mom and his sisters, they were repeatedly interrupting the proceedings, acting ridiculous, claimed at some point that there was a media circus and that he didn't get a fair trial. Basically because the girl was not identified, that it just kept getting rehashed. And it was kind of ridiculous. Yeah. So at some point they had to stop showing up, but they were very supportive of him. He was released in 2005, and he has since stayed way clear of the law. He served his time. He doesn't want to have much contact with his family or his old life, understandably so. He seems to want to go on peacefully living. Mm-hmm. He served his time. He has been helpful to the investigation to try to give sheriffs any information that he can. So he's just, that's where it ends for him. So unfortunately, he still has to go on knowing that he committed this crime, and the family has not been able to grieve. Yeah. Nobody's been able to identify her. They don't know anything about her. And she, doesn't have her name. He took her identity from her. So it's, I think that sounds like it might have been a determining factor on him utilizing his time in prison to get his shit together.
That's good.
Yeah, it is good.
I mean, that's what prison is supposed to be for, reform.
Right. Yes. So now we'll go on to Randy.
Okay.
He's definitely what you would consider the better known of the two. Mm-hmm. He, as far as crimes, definitely a sick asshole. So Randy is also a convicted killer, and he was also convicted on charges of insurance fraud from the deaths of 2 out of 4 wives. So
2 out of 4.
Oh, yeah. Are
all his wives dead?
No.
Oh.
No, not all of them are dead. 2 wives are dead. So I'm looking up his information and I'm looking at his picture and I'm thinking, I'm on Murderpedia. I'm thinking they got the picture, like the picture doesn't match the dates of his life. And I'm thinking they're wrong on the dates. I'm thinking they're like 100 years wrong, right? Because you look at him and he looks like this old timey, I don't know, barkeep.
Yeah.
From like the 19th century, like the turn of the century. His hair's parted down the middle. It's kind of wavy and it kind of like has the wings in the front and he's got this long mustache and he's kind of, the picture, he's like kind of staring off to the side. It was a very 80s picture that could have easily looked like 1910.
Yeah.
And all I'm picturing, and he's got like a tie on and everything. I'm picturing him wearing this like striped vest with a towel over his arm. And I'm thinking this couldn't have happened in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, where the fuck is this guy from? It's comical. But that's the picture that's out there everywhere. Like, you can barely find any pictures of him. That is the one picture that you can find readily.
Okay.
I had to laugh. I was like, the 80s were horrible. They were horrible. People were not attractive. And this asshole manages to get 4 whole wives.
Yeah.
And a few girlfriends.
Well, I mean, that look and that time, they're probably like, oh, this is different. And then that's why he had 4 girlfriends.
I know.
They probably just found out the bullshit. And
that's
like,
what's scary is now that I like think about it, yeah, a lot of people look like that in the 80s. It was a thing. It was a whole thing. It was disgusting.
Yeah, well, the 80s was a different time.
Yeah, I feel like they need to be forgotten in some aspects. All right, so we know much more about Randy. As I mentioned, he had no love for his mom. Seems that he had pretty much a disregard for women in general. In high school, he had steady girlfriends, but he had to always be in charge. He was very domineering. He didn't want anybody that had an opinion. And he was pretty much known as an all-around asshole and bully during high school years.
Right on.
Yeah. In 1973, before he graduated, he joined the Marine Reserves. And then he actually graduated from Meadowdale High School in Linwood.
Okay.
So then in August, he actually commits a crime before he ends up going into basic training. So August of 73, he decides to hold up a tire store in Linwood, and he gets about $240. He actually doesn't get charged at this time, and he ends up a month later in San Diego for basic training, with nobody being the wiser, basically. Yeah. He attends training in Camp Pendleton to be a clerk, which Randy finds tedious. He makes it about 7 months before requesting a hardship discharge. And after about 10 months in service, it's approved. So one report states that it was because his mom sent a request that he be discharged because she needed his help to support her. She was living off welfare and not doing well. Yeah. I kind of find that a little hard to believe. It's possible. I don't know. Given that he didn't have good regard from his mom or for his mom. Yeah. But another stated that he just didn't think military life was living up to his expectations, and he didn't like being a clerk. He had idolized, war movies about Vietnam and didn't look anything like that while he was like stationed in
like it was
Okinawa.
Advertised.
Right. So, take that with what you will. Who knows? So he comes back home to Linwood. So he doesn't even make it a year. So he quickly gets engaged after coming home. Doesn't quite work out for him. Turns out Randy has a side chick, and they get accused of burglary of the fiance's parents' house. So him and his side chick rob the fiance's parents' house. the fiance finds another woman's purse at her parents'